issue. U.S. President Donald Trump says Washington is, quote, totally prepared to respond to threats from North Korea following his recent verbal tit-for-tat with Pyongyang. He also emphasized the importance of Beijing's role in reining in North Korea on the eve of his highly anticipated five-nation trip to Asia, scheduled for early next month. Yoo Jun-hee has more.
Release. Booster ignition and full thrust. Hydraulics are good.
In an interview with Fox Business Network that aired on Sunday, President Trump said the United States is prepared for anything regarding North Korea. In a possible allusion to military action, Trump said people will be shocked to see how well prepared Washington is, but stopped short of revealing any details on what his administration plans to do. When asked about his friendship with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Trump said the two leaders have an exceptional relationship and highlighted Beijing's considerable power over North Korea to influence his actions. It was a more cordial tone from President Trump, who had previously criticized China on numerous occasions of not doing enough to tame its belligerent ally. He added, however, that despite China's assistance in keeping North Korea at bay, the U.S. will be making its own preparations to deal with the ongoing crisis. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, on the other hand, had a slightly different view of China's role in handling North Korea compared to the current man in the White House. In an interview with the New York Times, Carter said the U.S. is overestimating China's influence on the regime, noting that there appears to be no tangible relationship between President Xi and North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un. Carter also offered his role in diffusing the current tensions, saying he's willing to travel to Pyongyang on behalf of the Trump administration, and had already spoken to National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster about the possibility. The former president said he was deeply concerned about the current situation on the Korean peninsula, warning of Kim Jong-un's unpredictable behavior. He has traveled to North Korea on several occasions, spanning a period of more than 2 decades, to help broker several deals with Pyongyang. Yoo Jun-hee, Arirang News.
A senior North Korean diplomat has said Pyongyang will not hold talks of any kind with the U.S.
Release. Booster ignition and full thrust. Hydraulics are good.
𝐍𝐨, the regime's Director General for North American Affairs, said they will not be giving up their nuclear weapons and stressed Washington needs to accept North Korea as a nuclear state.
North Korean diplomat 𝐍𝐨 was speaking Saturday in a closed-door session at a conference on non-proliferation in Moscow. She reportedly said Pyongyang will not respond to any proposal for negotiations such as the six-party nuclear talks until the U.S. ends what she called its hostile policy towards Pyongyang. According to an anonymous participant at the session, 𝐍 said the North is living under constant threat from the U.S. and that processing nuclear weapons is a matter of life and death for the reclusive state. She added that those threats from the U.S. have made Pyongyang only more certain that it needs nuclear weapons to defend itself.
See what happens. Now, with that being said, we're prepared for anything. We are so prepared like you wouldn't believe. You would be shocked to see how totally prepared we are. If we need to be. Would it be nice not to do that? The answer is yes. Will that happen? Who knows?
And concluded that Washington has no choice but to accept that North Korea is a nuclear state. 𝐍 is North Korea's Director General for North American Affairs, and her remarks on Saturday are in line with those she made at another meeting on Friday, when she delivered a statement to the press.
DPRK's nuclear weapons are non-negotiable unless the U.S. is prepared to coexist with the nuclear DPRK. because this is the only way to ensure lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula and the stability and security in the Northeast Asia.
South Korea's deputy nuclear envoy was also at the conference, as well as several former U.S. officials, prompting speculation that there could be interaction of some kind with Che. Seoul's Yonhap News reports that although she is said to have greeted the South Korean diplomat informally, no formal meeting was arranged. Japan's Asahi Shimbun also reports that she did not respond to a Japanese official's request for a meeting. She did, however, hold separate talks with Oleg Burmistrov, a senior Russian official. Jong-Un.
That the military option was going to be put back on the table, that our policy is simply this, to denuclearize entirely North Korea.
North Korea.
As soon as Donald Trump became U.S. president, he sent Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis to the region to announce that the policy of strategic patience with North Korea was over.
That the military option was going to be put back on the table, that our policy is simply this, to denuclearize entirely North Korea. Until such time as they do that, then we are going to be moving towards economic sanctions, maximum pressure, isolation of the regime, and also having a military option on the table as a last resort.
The Trump administration has successfully brought about new wide-ranging UN sanctions against the North Korean regime. But as in the past, such moves require help from Beijing.
And the reason is simple, it's money. China controls 90 to 95% of the Korean economy. They have the land border with North Korea. They control the ocean and the sea around it if they desire to. China could shut down North Korea instantly.
General Keane agrees that a diplomatic solution depends on involving China.
China is completely complicit here. They tolerated North Korea having nuclear weapons. They tolerated North Korea having ballistic missiles. They tolerated North Korea developing intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Despite China's condemnation of Pyongyang's latest nuclear and missile activities, it hopes to avoid a collapse of the North Korean regime and the refugee influx across the border. But some experts argue that without China's help in solving the problem, South Korea and Japan are at risk.
What happens if South Korea asks the United States to return nuclear weapons to the peninsula, or they say we need our own nuclear program? I mean, how could you deny that to them? Japan, which has already reinterpreted its constitution a bit to at least allow collective self-defense, real collective self-defense. What about perhaps offensive systems in the face of this threat? Vietnam, where does this stop?
China has choices to make in the time ahead. I hope they choose to stand with the rest of the world and the United States and create a diplomatic outcome here.
The Trump administration is reviewing its China policy. It's expected to be complete before the president embarks on a trip to East Asia in November. Yela De Franceschi, VOA News, Washington.
You name your position and then we'll ask these folks to... Totally prepared for the second option, not a preferred option, but if we take that option, it will be devastating, I can tell you that, devastating for North Korea. That's called the military option. If we have to take it, we will. He's acting very badly. He's saying things that should never, ever be said, and we're replying to those things, but it's a reply. It's not an original statement, it's a reply. But the things that he said over the last year, and if you look back, the things that he said to past administrations, North Korea is a situation that should have been handled 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and 5 years ago, and it could have been handled much more easily. You had various administrations, many administrations, which left me a mess, but I'll fix the mess.